Welcome to another episode from the Bark Brigade podcast by Dogazilla magazine. Today, we will talk in depth about PTSD in dogs. Okay, let's unpack this immediately because every dog owner listening right now has likely witnessed this scene. You have the dog who is terrified of
Oh,
thunderstorms.
yeah.
They shake uncontrollably, they pant, they bolt, they hide in the closet, sometimes hours after the last rumble has faded away.
Right.
And we often label that as, simple fear or maybe generalized anxiety. But what happens when that fear is so overwhelming, so profound, that it stops being an immediate reaction and becomes a lasting psychological scar that changes their entire world?
That is the central question we are tackling today, and it is absolutely crucial for compassionate, modern dog ownership. Can dogs have post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD?
Right.
Historically, this question was met with a lot of dismissal, but the scientific answer today, recognized by board-certified veterinary behaviorists worldwide, is a resounding yes.
So it's not just us projecting human feelings onto them anymore.
Not at all. We have moved far beyond anecdotal evidence or, anthropomorphic projection. This is a diagnosable, scientifically verifiable neurological condition.
That distinction moving from projection to scientific fact is so important. Our mission for this deep dive is to translate that complex neurobiology, the structural brain changes, the hormonal dysregulation, the reasons why they can't just get over it, into actionable knowledge for you.
Exactly.
We want to move you, the listener, from recognizing fear in your dog to truly understanding the depth of their suffering and, most importantly, providing you with a detailed roadmap to healing and recovery.
What's truly fascinating, and often heartbreaking, is the realization, confirmed by our sources, that dogs can indeed carry the invisible, profound scars of trauma, just like humans.
Invisible scars, that's a powerful way to put it.
It is. And once we accept that physiological and psychological reality, the entire approach to managing their difficult behaviors transforms instantly from one of frustration into one of profound empathy, effective management, and dedicated rehabilitation.
So let's start with the hardest truth, because to treat this, we have to understand the science behind it. Not long ago, the concept of canine PTSD was met with significant skepticism.
A lot of it.
It was often dismissed as over-emotional owners projecting human pathologies onto a pet, or just chalked up to, poor training.
The training issue. We heard that all the time.
But that entire conversation has completely flipped in the last 2 decades. Advanced neurobiological research now provides undeniable proof, moving the topic firmly from anecdote into the realm of hard science and clinical diagnosis.
That shift is fundamental. The skepticism only lasted as long as we couldn't peer into the canine brain the way modern imaging and chemical analysis allows us to.
We can literally see it now.
We can see it. What the research confirms is that traumatic stress physically alters the dog's brain structure. It's not a willful choice to be anxious. It is a genuine physiological reality rooted in altered neural pathways.
Here's where it gets really interesting on a structural level, and this explains why trauma is so hard to reverse. We're talking about 2 key players in the brain. First, let's talk about the amygdala.
The fear center.
Exactly, the fear center. It's responsible for assessing threats and initiating the fight-or-flight response. After trauma, especially acute, terrifying trauma, studies consistently indicate that the amygdala becomes profoundly hyperactive.
And not just hyperactive. In severe cases, there is even evidence of physical enlargement. It actually gets bigger.
Wow.
You can visualize the amygdala as the brain's main alarm system. Trauma essentially breaks the off switch.
So it's always on.
It becomes stuck perpetually in the on position, constantly scanning the environment for threats that may or may not be there. This hyperactivity means the threshold for triggering a panic response drops dramatically.
So like a normal dog might ignore a dropped book.
Right, but a traumatized dog registers that sound with the same intensity as a gunshot. Their alarm system is just screaming danger.
And that hyperactive alarm bell leads to a critical imbalance because we have a second key player in the equation, the prefrontal cortex, or PFC.
The rational brain.
Right, the CEO of the brain.
Yep.
This is the area responsible for executive function rational decision-making, filtering sensory input, assessing nuanced risk, and critically, regulating and suppressing the fear responses generated by the amygdala.
And in traumatized dogs, and this is confirmed through imaging, this PFC shows reduced activity. It's running on low power.
So it can't step in and say, hey, calm down.
It can't effectively communicate with the hyperactive amygdala to say, hey, wait, that book dropping is just a book, stand down. The message just doesn't get through.
So if you connect those two dots for our listeners, a super sensitive hair trigger alarm bell coupled with the rational decision maker that is running on low power.
You get a perfect storm.
It explains why dogs cannot simply get over the past terror. They can't logic their way out of a panic attack. Their neural wiring has been fundamentally rearranged to prioritize immediate primal survival at the expense of rational, contextual thought.
It's a survival mechanism that has gone haywire.
The proof that dogs can have PTSD is literally written in their brain structure.
Understanding the physiological chaos in the brain is one thing, but how do veterinary experts actually formalize this diagnosis? Where do we draw the line between high anxiety and clinical PTSD?
That leads directly to the formal diagnostic criteria. Veterinary behaviorists recognized they needed a consistent, measurable framework, so they adapted the human model, specifically from the DSM,
The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, yeah.
for canine application. This formalized checklist moves the condition beyond vague, generalized anxiety and allows for targeted professional treatment.
And the specialist is looking for several key clusters that must be present together. First, obviously, there must be evidence of exposure to a traumatic event.
Something really big.
Something life-threatening or perceived as catastrophic, where the dog felt utterly powerless. Second, they look for evidence of persistent re-experiencing.
What does that look like in a dog? Flashback.
It manifests in dogs as nightmares, sleep disturbance, or clear flashbacks, where they react to a stimulus as if the trauma were happening again in the present.
Third, they look for active avoidance of reminders. The dog specifically refusing a certain park, hiding under the bed whenever a specific person approaches.
Right. And then fourth, there's the negative changes in mood and arousal. Things like a profound inability to trust humans or chronic irritability and, just a lack of joy.
And finally, heightened reactivity, which is that constant, exhausting state of hypervigilance we talked about.
And importantly, it's not just a bad day or even a bad week. The clinical requirement for a formal diagnosis is that these severe cluster-based symptoms must persist over a month and cause significant distress or impairment to the dog's ability to function normally in daily life.
So it has to be debilitating.
It has to be debilitating, fundamentally robbing them of their quality of life.
And some of the most compelling objective proof that solidified this diagnosis in the veterinary community comes from landmark studies performed on working dogs.
Yes, these populations provide relatively controlled, if tragic, observations. Their trauma, whether from combat, search and rescue disasters, or severe training incidents, is often a single, well-documented event.
So you can track the before and after.
Exactly. It allows researchers to track the onset and progression of symptoms cleanly.
We're talking specifically about military canines returning from high-stress combat zones, for instance.
Right. And the studies found that a significant portion displayed classic quantifiable PTSD symptoms. These weren't subtle changes.
What did they see?
We saw intense hypervigilance, where they constantly scan their environment, violently startling at unexpected but otherwise benign loud noises, and exhibiting uncharacteristic aggression or reluctance toward handling they previously tolerated without issue.
So their ability to do their job was compromised.
Severely compromised.
Yeah.
And similarly powerful data comes from rescue dogs. Research documents long-term psychological scars in dogs rescued from severe neglect, puppy mill scenarios, or natural disasters like hurricanes or floods.
And that's often complex trauma, right? Not just one event.
Exactly. These environments often inflict chronic, complex trauma and the subsequent behavioral patterns. Extreme resource guarding, phobias, deep-seated distrust align perfectly with the diagnostic framework of PTSD.
So the evidence from the field from these working dogs, it conclusively answers the question.
It does. The data confirms that dogs absolutely suffer from a recognized, debilitating psychological condition triggered by terrifying events that causes lasting behavioral and neurological changes.
So we know the proof is in the brain structure. Now, how do we, as owners and caretakers, see it in daily life? This section is critical because it requires the listener to fundamentally shift the perspective from "my dog is misbehaving" or "my dog is dominant"
Oh, that's a big one.
to "my dog is suffering and needs immediate help."
Canine PTSD often operates in silence, expressed through behaviors that are easily mistaken for stubbornness, disobedience, or just being a difficult dog. It's about learning to interpret their language of distress.
So let's break it down for them.
We organize the signs into 3 primary symptom clusters that, when observed together, strongly suggest a trauma-based issue.
Let's start with symptom cluster A, hypervigilance. This is the relentless scanning behavior. Describe what that looks and feels like for the dog.
This is the dog living in a constant, exhausting state of high alert. Imagine feeling like you are perpetually walking through a field of landmines.
Wow.
They are overly responsive to mundane stimuli. It's not just that they hear the door closing, they react violently to it. A dropping spoon, a floor creak, a distant siren, or even a sudden shift in lighting can trigger a full-blown panic response.
And this relentless scanning isn't just about sound, is it? It's often visual, too.
Absolutely. The hyperactive amygdala processes all sensory input as potentially life-threatening. The dog might be restlessly shifting, their eyes constantly flicking across the room, unable to settle their gaze or their body. Their muscles are often tense.
They're just primed for disaster.
They are physiologically primed for a threat that, in their mind, could return at any second.
How does that constant state of readiness impact their rest? I mean, they must be exhausted.
It creates a vicious cycle of exhaustion. This hyperarousal severely affects sleep quality. They might only sleep lightly and intermittently, always having one ear up, always on guard duty.
They never get that deep sleep.
They don't achieve that deep, restorative REM sleep needed to process information and calm the body down. This sleep deprivation then compounds their anxiety, making them even less resilient the next day. A dog that is constantly exhausted cannot be a calm dog.
Moving to symptom cluster B, avoidance and withdrawal. This is the dog actively coping by strategically retreating. What separates this from simple shyness?
Shyness is usually manageable with gentle exposure. Avoidance linked to PTSD is an active, strategic refusal.
Hard no.
A hard no. The dog refuses to walk down a certain street because a trigger happened there. They might hide under the bed for hours or retreat the moment someone resembling a past abuser enters the room.
These behaviors are often interpreted as disobedience, right? My dog just doesn't want to go for a walk.
Exactly. But this withdrawal is their strategy to preserve their sense of security. It's a non-confrontational way of saying, I feel unsafe here.
And they might lose interest in things they used to love.
Oh, definitely. We often see a profound loss of interest in activities they once loved. They stop playing with favorite toys, they become reluctant to go into the yard because the outside world feels too threatening, too unpredictable.
And that avoidance gives us clues.
It offers crucial detective-like clues to their internal traumatic triggers, giving us a roadmap for future behavior modification.
Now, the cluster that causes the most distress and often necessitates professional intervention. Symptom cluster C, unprovoked aggression.
The fear bite.
Yeah, we see fear manifest as preemptive aggression, the growling, snapping, or lunging at stimuli that appear completely neutral to us. Give us some examples.
We see this often in dogs with poor early socialization or a history of abuse. They might react violently to a man wearing a specific kind of hat, a child running quickly, the sight of a bicycle, or even the sound of their own leaf being picked up.
Things that shouldn't be scary.
The key is the trigger is neutral to us, but perceived as a direct threat to the dog.
And this is almost always misinterpreted, which tragically leads to poor outcomes. Owners often call this dominance or being unpredictable.
And that misinterpretation is the core of the tragedy. This aggression is fundamentally a fear bite. It is a desperate, primal attempt to increase distance from a perceived threat before that threat can hurt them again.
It's defense, not offense.
It's an escalated form of fight or flight, chosen when the dog believes flight is impossible. When the owner responds by scolding, isolating, or punishing the dog for snapping or growling, it only reinforces the dog's deepest fear.
That the world really is dangerous.
That humans are unpredictable, dangerous, and the world is fundamentally unsafe.
That is a vital treatment insight we need to anchor for the listener. Recognizing that this aggression is a trauma response is the absolute first step toward de-escalation.
It is.
If we punish the growl, we just teach the dog to suppress the warning signal and go straight to the bite. We have to address the root fear, not the surface behavior.
Precisely. And this is why a thorough clinical assessment is necessary. Before we label anything as PTSD, a veterinarian must rule out any underlying medical causes.
Right. Pain is a huge factor.
A massive factor. Chronic pain dramatically lowers the dog's stress threshold, making them quicker to snap. Once medical issues are cleared, a veterinary behaviorist can perform a detailed behavioral history, assessing when the symptoms started, what triggers the reaction, and how severe the impairment is.
It sounds like treating PTSD is less about training maneuvers and more about complex emotional and neurological therapy.
It is entirely that. We are teaching a dog that the rules of gravity have changed, in a way. We are asking their nervous system to accept safety where it previously registered mortal danger.
Let's delve into what actually causes this neurological shift, the triggers.
Yeah.
Trauma is intensely subjective. The sources note that what is a manageable fright for one dog can be catastrophic for another.
And that's so important to remember. The common thread is always the feeling of being utterly powerless and completely overwhelmed by terror.
So identifying these triggers is key.
It's essential for both prevention and later for designing precise treatment protocols. We generally divide these triggers into three main categories.
Start with Category 1, direct life-threatening events. These are the classic, acute incidents we often associate with trauma.
Examples here include the dog being hit by a car, attacked viciously by another animal, especially a predator, or caught in a severe environmental event like a fire, flood, or earthquake. The dog's survival system is slammed into overdrive.
The problem isn't just the event itself, but how the brain encodes it, right?
Exactly. The trauma is locked away with intense sensory details. This is why we see the re-experiencing symptoms. The memory includes the specific smell of burning plastic, the high-pitched squeal of tires, the specific texture of the floor they were hiding on.
So later on, something completely unrelated can set them off.
It can. Later, these seemingly subtle cues, such as the smell of rain or the distant squeal of a bicycle brake, can trigger a full-blown panic attack. It's not just a memory recall. It's a visceral reliving of the event.
Then we have Category 2, chronic abuse and neglect or complex trauma. This is prolonged exposure to a hostile, unpredictable environment.
This is often seen in dogs rescued from puppy mills, extreme hoarding situations, or homes with sustained, harsh punishment. These dogs have never known true safety, predictability, or consistent kindness.
Their whole world has been unsafe.
Their entire history is one of waiting for the next negative event.
I imagine this type of trauma presents a unique challenge for rehabilitation.
It does, because the core problem isn't a specific event, but the complete lack of a stable foundation. The dog must learn that the fundamental rules of their entire existence have changed, that human hands now mean safety, not pain.
So they show more general symptoms.
They often display generalized symptoms, like profound inability to trust, severe resource guarding, and generalized fear of human interaction. Healing requires immense, sustained patience and commitment from the owner, sometimes measured in years, just to build basic trust.
And a third category, which is tragically common and often preventable. Category 3, iatrogenic trauma. That's trauma caused by necessary care.
This refers to events like painful or frightening procedures at the vet, forceful restraint during grooming, or a chaotic, frightening stay in a boarding kennel.
So the place is meant to help them become the source of fear.
The tragedy is that the very people and places meant to help them become inextricably associated with fear, pain, and loss of control.
Can you give us a detailed example of how a routine visit could become traumatic?
Certainly. Imagine a small, already anxious dog taken to a busy vet office. They smell antiseptic and fear pheromones from other animals. A loud door slams.
Overwhelming.
Then they're forcefully pinned down on a cold, slippery metal table by a large, fast-moving stranger for a painful injection, and their desperate struggling is ignored.
So you have loss of control, pain, and sensory overload all at once.
Exactly. That combination can encode the smell of the clinic, the sound of the clanging table, and the sensation of being held down as a critical threat. The dog subsequently panics every time they see a harness or approach the parking lot.
That underscores the critical importance of fear-free, low-stress handling practices in all animal care professions.
Absolutely. If we allow help to become associated with pain, we are actively creating re-traumatization and preventing the dog from getting the essential care they need later in life.
Now that we've discussed the events, we need to go deeper into the underlying biology. We established that PTSD is not just behavioral, it's a dysregulation of the survival system.
It is. The hormonal and neurological systems that flood the body during danger fail to return to baseline after the danger passes.
The dog is essentially trapped in a past moment of terror. Let's expand on the concept of the hijacked amygdala and fear generalization.
So when the amygdala is perpetually hyperreactive, the alarm bell begins to fire at stimuli that are only vaguely related to the original traumatic event. This is fear generalization.
So fear spreads.
It spreads. For example, a dog that was traumatized by a car backfiring a certain high-frequency sound might start reacting violently to a simple book dropping on the floor or a refrigerator making a sudden humming noise.
Their brain just lumps it all together.
Their brain categorizes all sudden unexpected high-frequency sounds as the same life-threatening event.
And the cortex, the rational part, is supposed to provide context, saying that's just a book. But since the PFC is offline, the dog reacts purely on instinct.
Precisely. We often talk about trigger stacking, which is a crucial concept for owners.
Explain that.
It means minor stresses accumulate throughout the day until the dog has a disproportionate massive reaction. They might tolerate a strange noise, but if the noise happens right after they saw a delivery truck and they were already stressed from a brief encounter with a neighbor, they exceed their neurological capacity.
Their bucket overflows.
The bucket overflows. Their logical thinking brain is completely bypassed, overruled by a primal survival command. Reasoning with or scolding that dog is utterly futile because their higher brain functions are unavailable.
And the hormonal reality of this stress is devastating to their physical health.
It is. During trauma, the body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. In PTSD, this system becomes dysregulated, meaning the feedback loop that should shut off the production of cortisol after the danger passes is broken.
So they're just marinating in stress hormones.
Exactly. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, may remain chronically elevated.
This creates a toxic, sustained state of physiological stress that affects every bodily system, not just their behavior.
That's right. This physiological stress can lead to noticeable physical symptoms. Chronic weight loss due to metabolic overdrive, a weakened immune system leading to frequent illness, persistent skin issues, and chronic gastrointestinal issues like diarrhea or colitis.
So it's a whole body problem.
The dog's own chemistry is effectively poisoning their physical body, creating a vicious cycle where fear begets more fear and poor health.
Finally, we must revisit maladaptive memory consolidation. We mentioned flashbacks, but let's explain exactly why the past feels eternal for these dogs.
Traumatic memories aren't stored as coherent, well-ordered narratives.
Yeah.
That was a scary storm, but it's over now and I survived.
It's not a story with a beginning, middle, and end?
No. Instead, they are stored as fragmented, sensory-rich data. The smell of gunpowder, the sudden change in air pressure, the sensation of being dragged. These fragments are easily triggered, causing a flash flood of panic we call a flashback.
That is the cruel heart of PTSD. When your dog hears that firework, they aren't just remembering the terrifying car accident from 2 years ago.
No, they are reacting as if the trauma is happening now. Their memory system cannot properly file the event as a completed past experience. The past feels eternally present.
Which is why all healing must focus on restoring safety in the present moment, building new, positive memory structures. Recognizing that biological malfunction is the first step, but a diagnosis of PTSD can feel incredibly overwhelming to an owner.
It really can.
Luckily, it is the beginning of a robust roadmap to recovery. The core principle of effective treatment is that it must be multimodal, combining management, behavior modification, and sometimes medication.
And the goal is to help the dog's nervous system learn to truly feel safe in the present moment today.
And we should manage expectations. This isn't a quick fix.
Success is not measured in instant cures. It is measured in small, incremental victories. A moment of relaxation, a wider buffer zone around a trigger, or a simple spark of regained joy during play.
But improvement is possible.
Significant improvement in quality of life is not just possible. It is the likely outcome with dedicated professional support.
So the cornerstone of this treatment is step 1, professional evaluation. We can't bypass the general vet.
No, absolutely not. The first stop is always the general practitioner vet to conduct a full physical and blood work to rule out physical pain or illness.
Because pain makes everything worse.
Because pain dramatically lowers the dog's stress threshold. Treating a joint issue or dental pain can significantly reduce baseline anxiety and make behavioral therapy much more effective.
But for the complexity of PTSD, a general vet usually isn't enough.
That's right. For complex trauma, a referral to a specialist is ideal, specifically a diplomate of the American College of Veterinary Behaviorists, a DACVB.
And they can do what a general vet can't.
These are veterinarians who have gone through extensive residency and certification, specifically in psychopharmacology and behavioral modification. They design a comprehensive, individualized plan, which often includes the humane use of psychoactive medication.
This is a point where many owners struggle. You mentioned medication like SSRIs, like fluoxetine. We hear so many owners say they worry they are just drugging their dog into submission. How do we counter the idea that this is a chemical muzzle rather than a tool for healing?
That perception is the biggest barrier we face. It is crucial to understand that medication is not a sedative, and it is not a substitute for training.
It's a support.
For moderate to severe cases, medication is a critical humane component because it corrects the biochemical imbalance we discussed, that dysregulated cortisol and adrenaline. It works by raising the dog's overall threshold for anxiety.
So it doesn't make them sleepy, it makes them receptive.
Exactly. We call it turning down the volume of their fear. If their fear is currently operating at a level 10, no amount of counter-conditioning will stick because the rational brain is completely offline.
They're just too panicked to learn.
Right. Medication might drop that baseline fear to a 5 or 6, making them stable enough to actually process the new learning we introduce through behavioral therapy. It allows the brain to be in a state where emotional healing can begin. It is a tool of compassion.
Once that neurological baseline is managed, we move to step 2, behavior modification, which is the absolute core rehab tool.
And this uses evidence-based techniques to literally rewire the brain's maladaptive associations.
Okay, so let's break that down.
The two essential components are desensitization and counter-conditioning. Desensitization involves exposing the dog to a minimized version of their trigger.
Minimized is the key word there.
The goal is to keep the exposure below the dog's stress threshold. For a dog terrified of the vacuum cleaner, that might be running the vacuum in another room with the door closed and thick blankets underneath it, so the dog can barely perceive the sound.
We want to trigger the sensory input, but not the panic response.
Precisely. If they show any sign of stress ears back, lip licking, tail tucking, we have gone too far, and we must immediately reduce the intensity. This must be done with exquisite care to avoid any risk of re-traumatization.
Then simultaneously, we use counter-conditioning. How does that work in practice?
We pair that minimized trigger with something the dog deeply, profoundly loves, like high-value chicken, cheese, or a favorite specialized toy only used for training.
So the moment they hear the tiny sound.
The moment the dog hears the barely audible vacuum sound, you immediately deliver a piece of high-value chicken.
The mechanism is simple, yet profoundly powerful. We are actively overriding the neural association. We are rewiring the brain from faint vacuum sound equals danger and panic to faint vacuum sound equals delicious chicken and safety.
And it has to be that good stuff. This slow, positive work directly challenges the dog's negative memory consolidation. It teaches them that their expectation of terror when faced with that specific trigger is now wrong.
And because they're below threshold.
Thanks to the medication or management, they can actually form the new positive memory. This process can take months, sometimes years, and requires meticulous tracking and consistent effort.
Finally, we have step 3, environmental management. This is the foundation upon which all other healing is built, and it's non-negotiable.
Absolutely. Healing simply cannot occur in a chaotic, unpredictable, or highly triggering environment.
So the owner has to become a protector.
The owner must become an expert trigger manager. This requires constant observation, prediction, and avoidance of known stressors whenever possible, especially early in treatment. This isn't about giving in to fear. It's about providing the essential structure of security.
You're buying them time to heal.
We are buying the dog time and space for their nervous system to heal.
What are the critical tools for creating that safe harbor?
Creating an unshakable safe space is paramount. This might be a sound-muffled crate in a quiet room, a safe haven bed where they are never disturbed, or a closet they can retreat to.
And other tools.
We also utilize environmental calming aids like white noise machines, calming music playlists specifically designed for dogs, and pheromone diffusers like Adaptil.
And the importance of structured routines.
It is the bedrock. For an anxious, traumatized brain, predictability equals safety. When the dog knows exactly when they will eat, when they will go out, and where they can retreat, it radically reduces the stress of uncertainty.
It's one less thing for them to worry about.
This management provides the secure foundation from which the dog can actually begin the intensive work of learning to feel safe in the present.
Okay, we've calmed the nervous system and started rewiring the fear response. Now we focus on building. True recovery extends far beyond just symptom reduction.
Right.
It involves actively building confidence and agency to overwrite the initial feelings of helplessness that trauma instilled. We want to move beyond the diagnosis toward a fuller, more resilient life.
We want to replace those memories of being utterly powerless with experiences of success and control. Activities that foster confidence are profoundly therapeutic, and one of the most powerful yet accessible tools available to owners is nose work or scent work.
Why is nose work so uniquely effective for trauma dogs compared to, say, obedience training?
Because a dog's sense of smell is their primary way of interacting with the world, and that olfactory bulb is directly linked to the emotional and memory centers of their brain.
So it's a direct line to the problem area.
It is. The simple act of searching for a hidden treat or a target odor is inherently self-calming and profoundly rewarding. It requires immense focus, drawing the dog's attention away from external threats and inward onto a solvable problem.
So it's a neurobiological intervention disguised as a fun game.
Precisely. Each successful find floods their system with dopamine, a neurochemical associated with pleasure and motivation. This literally helps rebuild a brain focused on seeking rewards, not scanning for threats.
It changes their whole mindset.
Simple games like Find It, or more structured nosework sports, give the dog a satisfying job where they're the expert. This builds new, positive neural pathways, one successful search, one hit of dopamine at a time. It shifts their operating system from threat detection to resource seeking.
Building on that sense of competency is restoring agency through choice-based training. Trauma involves a devastating loss of control, where things happen to the dog without their consent. Therefore, rehabilitation must actively restore their sense of agency.
This involves subtle but profound shifts in how we interact with the dog daily. We want to empower them to communicate their comfort levels.
How do we do that?
Practices include letting the dog initiate interaction, offering a chin rest, or sitting close to the start button if they want petting, rather than just descending upon them. We use consent testing for activities like brushing or nail trims.
And crucially, respecting their no.
That is perhaps the most important part of rebuilding trust. Respecting a no, when a dog politely shifts their body away, gives a slight lip lick, or walks away from an interaction, is just as important as rewarding a yes.
You're teaching them their voice matters.
We teach them, I hear you, I respect your boundary, and I will not force you to engage. This empowerment is how we rebuild trust from the ground up, teaching the dog that their actions have predictable positive consequences and that their boundaries will be honored. This directly counters the powerlessness inherent in their traumatic experience.
We should also revisit the importance of structured routine and predictable enrichment beyond the safe space.
For an anxious brain, predictability is life-saving. A consistent daily schedule, when they eat, when they have quiet time, when they get enrichment, reduces the ambient stress of uncertainty.
So they know what's coming.
This structure provides a continuous, subtle drip feed of predictability that slowly counters the chaos encoded by the trauma memory.
And pairing that routine with predictable enrichment provides mental anchors.
Exactly. Mealtime should be a solvable challenge using puzzle feeders. Daily frozen Kongs, or lick mats, provide a guaranteed, low-effort opportunity for sustained, calming behavior. These activities provide mental stimulation within a framework the dog can completely trust.
So you're creating a new narrative.
You're creating a new narrative where small, guaranteed good things happen regularly, countering the ingrained expectation of chaotic, negative events.
Now let's talk directly to the owners, because this is often the hardest part. The owner's commitment.
It's huge.
Supporting a dog with PTSD is a profound, demanding commitment that requires patience, education, and critically, self-care.
You are the dog's safe harbor. You have to accept that recovery is not a straight line. It is a spiral involving regressions.
There will be bad days.
There will be bad days, plateaus, and sudden steps backward due to unpredictable triggers. Owners must let go of the idealized version of a normal dog and learn to celebrate those micro-victories.
What's a micro-victory?
A softer eye during a walk, a deeper sigh of relaxation, a moment of unprompted curiosity. This deep patience communicates unconditional safety to your dog's nervous system far more effectively than any treat or command.
And that leads right into the necessary discussion of emotional regulation for the handler. You cannot model calmness from a state of burnout.
Dogs are exquisitely sensitive to handler attention. They are masters of reading micro-expressions and subtle shifts in posture.
They know when you're stressed.
If you approach a counter-conditioning session feeling anxious, frustrated, or rushed, your dog will absorb that tension instantly, undermining the behavioral work you are trying to achieve. They will think, if my human is stressed, the environment must be dangerous.
So an owner's well-being is not a luxury separate from their dog's treatment plan. It is a central, critical component.
Absolutely. Owners must proactively manage their own stress-seek support groups, practice deep breathing exercises before starting training, and take breaks when they feel frustrated.
It's okay to step away.
If the owner is too stressed, they need to implement management tools, like putting the dog safely in their crate and step away. Sustained burnout leads to frustration, and frustration leads to reactive handling, which is precisely what we must avoid in a trauma-focused protocol.
Finally, building a supportive care team is invaluable. You should not attempt to be the sole therapist.
I know, you can't do it alone. A care team provides the necessary expertise and emotional buffer. This team might include your fear-free veterinarian, a certified professional trainer specializing in trauma or fear, and ideally, the veterinary behaviorist.
And you have to clue everyone in.
Educate everyone who interacts with your dog family, dog walkers, neighbors, about their needs and specific triggers.
And this includes public advocacy, which is a necessary part of management.
Using tools like clearly visible "do not pet" working or nervous patches on harnesses protects your dog's space in public. It ensures their boundaries are honored, reinforcing their sense of safety and predictability.
You're their voice.
You are their advocate, reducing their need to feel defensive and allowing them to experience the world without constant pressure.
To wrap up this extensive deep dive, let's tackle some of the most common and sometimes difficult questions that owners face once they fully grasp that their dog has PTSD and they embark on this long-term journey.
First, the big one, because time sometimes seems like the only factor. Can PTSD go away on its own?
Rarely, if ever. Unlike a simple fear that might fade with positive exposures, PTSD is rooted in those severe maladaptive neurological and hormonal patterns we discussed.
They get stuck.
They tend to persist and can often worsen if the dog is repeatedly exposed to triggers without professional intervention. Those deep neural pathways need active, guided rewiring. Professional guidance is almost always necessary to significantly improve their long-term quality of life.
Next, a question we addressed but bears repeating. Is medication a cop-out for treatment?
Absolutely not. We must erase that myth. For moderate to severe cases, medication corrects a complex biochemical imbalance, reducing profound suffering.
It lets them learn.
Critically, it enables behavioral therapy by lowering the dog's anxiety threshold so they can actually learn. It turns the noise down so the core healing work can stick. It is a humane, evidence-based tool, not a substitute for training or patience.
How long does recovery take? This is often the first thing owners ask once the diagnosis is confirmed.
We have to be honest, there is no standard timeline. It's a long-term commitment measured in months or years, depending on the severity of the trauma, the dog's age, and the owner's consistency with the protocol.
So focus on the journey, not the destination.
The goal is measured in gradual, sustained improvement in welfare and functionality, not a speedy magical cure. The dog needs stability and routine far more than they need speed.
Will my dog ever be normal? This reflects the deep desire of owners for their dog to return to a pre-trauma state.
The goal is not necessarily to recreate a dog who never experienced trauma. The goal is to help them become a secure, happy dog who can manage their world effectively and functionally.
The new normal.
Exactly. They will likely retain a higher level of sensitivity, and they may still have occasional setbacks, but with proper, consistent support, they will have many more good days where they feel present and safe than bad days spent in panic. They learn how to cope and manage their trauma, which is a massive victory.
Finally, on a proactive note, can I prevent my dog from getting PTSD?
While you can't shield them from every possible traumatic event in the world, you can't control a car accident or a sudden attack, you can absolutely build profound resilience.
How so?
Providing a secure, predictable upbringing, abundant positive socialization, using only force-free, choice-based training methods, and advocating fiercely for your dog in stressful situations, all of this contributes to a robust psychological foundation.
It's like psychological armor.
This resilience acts as a buffer, making them much more capable of processing and recovering from high-stress events should they occur. And as a final provocative thought, let's briefly connect this back to the service dog community, which relies on the stability and emotional strength of canines. We have spent this whole deep dive focusing on helping the dog heal from their own trauma, but let's remember the powerful two-way street of the canine-human bond.
Our sources confirm that specially trained service dogs are essential for performing life-changing tasks for humans suffering from PTSD.
Right.
Interrupting anxiety attacks, providing physical grounding and deep pressure during dissociative episodes, and offering comfort during night terrors.
This incredible, profound partnership showcases the extraordinary nature of the canine species. They are resilient enough to heal from profound trauma themselves, and then, in turn, they possess the innate capacity to provide profound, unconditional healing to others who suffer.
It's a remarkable testament to the strength of the bond and the power of mutual reliance, reminding us that whether the dog is the patient or the therapist, the core need remains the same: unconditional support, trust, and safety.
It truly changes your perception of what man's best friend means.
It really does.
Thanks for listening to the Bark Brigade podcast, and we hope this insights can help someone, even one dog, to get healed from these tips. We would be happy and we will be satisfied. For more dog guides, tips, and fun dog videos, we recommend to visit Dogzilla magazine at dogzilla.com. See you on the next episode, and as always, woof, woof, woof to all who woof and woof, always on time with their brigade.